and get to it. All right, so Masters of Venice here. Venice, 1400s. You are a young noble merchant trying to make your name in a city of vibrant commerce. Spice, silks, gems, iron and grain are the hottest commodities. Now it is time for you to dive into the market and make a name for yourself. But this is a city rife with fickle demand and politics. Look for help from influential power brokers of Venice. Increase profits by partnering with the best craftsmen who need your trade goods. Fulfill orders from the guild hall to gain prestige. But in the end, the most important thing to remember is simple. Buy low, sell high. For only those who amass the most gold and prestige can truly be the Masters of Venice. All right, the emphasis was mine, but yeah, go with it, all right? All right, so normally what I do before I go into anything is go over the components, so we're going to go over that tonight as well. So starting on the main board, there's a lot going on this board. So we have the gondolieri, which is going to be our turn track right through here. We're going to take a total of 12 regular turns interspersed by 4 turn order bids as we go along. Then the board is divided into different sections. First off, we have the victory point track around the outside.
Around the outside.
All right, then at the bottom, we have the lumber. This is why we can't have nice things. All right.
I'm not going to post. You're going to do it.
You're fine. You're fine. All right. So there are different action spaces around here. So we have the shops, which are these 5 shops around here. We have the stock market. Over here, we have the guild hall down there. Then we have 4 here in the center. We have the Mercato, and then the north and south shipping offices. Then we have the church. And last but not least, this area over here, we have the docks. We also have the turn order track right here. Along the bottom edge of the screen here, we actually have the shares that are actually off screen a little bit. So only half of them are visible, only top half. Honestly, we don't need those on screen. There are 10 shares of each company, but to be able to save a little space. So we have the blacksmith company, which coincides with the board over there. We have the jeweler company, which there, the miller, the spice shop, and the tailor. There are 2 other certificates that we can invest in, which are the shipping office north and shipping office south, which correspond to those 2 locations there. We also have the guild orders, which are going to be the recipe fulfillment or the set collection that we're going to be partially at least trying to do. Then over at the top of the board are the special abilities or the characters that we're going to be drafting during each bid round as well. And of course, we have the main company boards here. On each company board, there are 3 different tracks on them. The white peg along the top edge there, as Chris is trying to show you guys there you go. That is going to be for the resource value, so the cost for buying and selling resources there. The pink or purple pegs on that is going to be the share price that's going to be adjusting. So whenever we buy and sell shares there, those are going to be adjusted. And then at the very bottom are the orders. This is how many resources or how many cubes can be sold to that store or fulfilled via guild orders that they have availability. So the first thing that you're going to want to check is, are there enough orders in which to fill? That is a key and component, which I failed to do numerous times last time we played this. Then player tableau areas. Everyone starts with 150 ducats or 150 bucks. We're using poker chips because the game comes with, we're using poker chips. And then we have our action selection dials. So on one side, finito. On the other side, they're in player colors. You have the bid values around the outside of the boards here, and then of the 8 available action spaces, which, as I explained, are out here on the board. More on this here a little bit later. Then there is the resource bag with all the different resource cubes in it, which some are already out here on the docks and some are already out in the shipping offices. Then, last but not least, this doesn't come as a part of the game, but it is an integral part of the game. and that is the player aids. These are available on BGG, uploaded from R&R Games, and I cannot stress the importance. Do not try and play this game without this, at least for your first handful of games. If it's in early and often rotation, you probably won't need these. If it's not, you're going to need these. These are going to be invaluable. So that's everything that you guys are looking at, but let's talk about, before I go into how to play the game, let's go over the objective. Obviously, the objective is victory points. Notice the victory point track only goes up to 40. We finished around this area when we played this on yesterday. However, how you're going to be getting the victory points is a number of different ways. So these guild orders here are going to be, as I said, recipe fulfillment or set collection. So during the game, we're each going to have some number of guild orders in which we're going to try and acquire these resources either through the docks, through the shipping offices, or possibly through the Mercato, to then be able to convert these into these guild orders down here in the guild hall, turn them in for victory points and or money. So that's going to be a partial way, one of the main ways we're going to be getting victory points in this game. The other, and I would argue bigger way that we're going to be getting victory points in this game is through the investments of these 5 companies here. So each company has 10 shares of certificates, which we're going to be investing at the stock market as well as divesting. And at the end of the game, we're going to cash out all our shares based on where the share value is for each company, and then convert that money into victory points as well, along with money in your portfolio, converting that into victory points. Whoever has the most points wins. So that's kind of the gist of what we're going to be doing, but how do we go about doing this, okay? All right. Now, from this point forward, now I'll go ahead and go through a round and talk about what your different options are and what the steps are, because now that you have a little bit of context, now it's going to make a little bit more sense. So the game is played over 4 quarters. Think of them that way. Each quarter starts off with a bid for turn order and then some other things that take place. Then 3 action rounds. Then we're going to go into another quarter with a bid in 3 rounds, a bid in 3 rounds, a bid in 3 rounds, and then we go into final scoring at that point, okay? So the bidding rounds, the first thing that's going to happen is players are going to secretly choose how much they're going to bid from their available ducats to be able to pay to the bank for turn order. Whoever's the highest wins. If there are ties, ties are going to be broken by number of shares that they have, but there is a hierarchy for shares. The hierarchy being the shipping offices, whoever has the most of those of the tied players will go first. Then it's alphabetical from there. Whoever has the most blacksmith, then et cetera, of the tied players. The money is going to be paid to the bank, and then after that, we will set turn order in that order going from first to last. Whoever is the last player automatically is going to take the gondolieri, or as we like to joke, gondola Larry. Will take that role. They are forced to take that role. We'll go over the roles in detail a little bit later, probably at the end of the teach, okay? But just know whoever's in last is going to take that role. Then, in turn order, everyone else will be able to select one of the remaining 5 roles. Now, there is a mini expansion in this game that has additional roles, but we're just playing the base game, so we're not playing with any of those, okay? So after everybody has selected one of those roles, then in turn order, every player is going to adjust the orders at one of the 5 shops. So what does this mean? For every $5 that they spent, so if I spent, for instance, $15 on my opening bid, I could do one of 2 things. I choose one of the 5 shops, maybe say I choose the tailor shop. For every $5, I can increase the orders 1 for every $5. So in this case, I could go up 3 spots because 15 ducats, right? Or if you want to be that person, and there are reasons to be that person, you can spend 10, for every 10 ducats that you spent, you can lower the orders by 1. So in this case, if I had spent 25, I could lower it by 2. Okay, but again, that's only at one store of your choice, and that happens in turn order. So one of the advantages of going last is you can undo what somebody earlier in turn order chose to do. All right, so that is the bidding rounds. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Pretty straightforward, I think. All money, remember, is paid to the bank. So the next step is whoever is gondola Larry here then chooses with the important part, the feather or little frame forward. I got this wrong yesterday. I made a big to-deal about this. They advance one space, and whoever is the gondolieri is going to take one of these tiles. Now, there are some of these tiles that are removed from the game, and I'm just going to show one off. They're going to show one of the 5 resources. Here, this being a blacksmith or a piece of iron, okay? What these are, whoever has the gondolieri takes this in secret and keeps it hidden. At any point on their turn in a subsequent round, at any point in the game, they can choose to discard this, showing everybody, and then move one peg on that board in one direction, up or down, one space. So either orders, either the share value or the resource value, they can move that one peg. So if you're desperate to be able to fill in order, well, maybe you boost up the number of orders, but you can move one peg, one space in either direction on the associated color board. So that's going to be the first step. Then after they have taken that, the next thing is the main part of the game, which are the commerce rounds. So the rules recommend that you remember map. I'll be honest, I played this game about a dozen times. I've never remembered map. But as it explains it is move, actions, then payments. So the first part is move. So what's going to happen is all 4, in our case, all 4 of us are going to choose one of the locations on our dials secretly and then face it up to our finito. And once it's down, it's down. And once we all have chosen simultaneously, we then simultaneously reveal. And then we're going to take our our marker and place it out on the board in the associated area. So if I chose the Mercato, I'll go there. Let's say here, Christopher chose the Northern Shipping Office. We're going over to the shops here, there, and Jess decided to also come over. Oh, look at that. Good choice, Jess, is coming over to the Mercato as well, which is totally fine. All 4 of us could have gone to the Mercato. There's no limit because it's all done in secret and it's all done simultaneously. Then the meat of the game begins, which are we actually take on the actual actions. Now, before I go over the actions, let me break down the board into 2 sections. There are the 4 interior spaces, and then there are the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 outer locations on the board. The reason that for the delineation and the clarification between the inner and the outer ones is because when a player goes to one of the 4 inner locations, only they take that action. Whereas, if a player goes to one of the 4 outside locations, everybody gets to join in the party and takes the action, okay? So before I go into exactly the details of each location, let me go ahead and talk about how turn order works. Now, as you can see, if based on our number of bids, this is the turn order in which we went. If it were something along the lines of, say, this, normally it would go yellow, blue, green, black. Okay, easy enough. However, when a location is shared by 2 or more players, everything in that location triggers in order. So what I mean by that is yellow is going to take their action. So I would take my action here at the Mercato. Then, because we share the same space, Jess is actually going to take her action because it's in the same location. Then after that, then we revert to turn order. So in this case, blue would then take their action, and then finally black would take their action. But because black is on one of the outside spaces, after black has taken their action, not in turn order, but in clockwise order, everybody is going to get the option to take that action as well. So Chris would get to go first, then Christopher, then me, and finally Jess would be able to take her action out here on the shops. Does that make sense? That is it's subtle, and it does come into play, the order of actions, because it can trip people up, but it's also going to be vitally important, especially when it comes to fulfilling orders or having enough money to be able to buy resources or invest in stocks. Okay? A moment while I get a drink. All right. So that is how turn order works. And now that we've covered that, let's go ahead and talk about the 8 main locations on the board. So instead of cluttering it with everybody's pieces, we're going to start over here with the Mercato. So somebody goes to the Mercato, here is what happens. They may buy one resource at the current price. Now the current price is wherever the weight peg is, depending on which resource that they want to buy. So of the 5 different colors there, or there is also wood down here. Now notice that lumber or wood is always in demand. It can always fill orders. All this has is a price. You can't invest in lumber, but you can invest in the other 5 companies. Okay? All right. So that being said, you can buy one resource at the current price and or sell one resource at the current price, and they have to be different resources. Because as soon as somebody buys a resource, so I say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and buy some iron. So what's going to happen at that point is we're going to dig into the bag. We're going to find some iron. I say, hey, I'm going to purchase that iron. The purchase price currently is 80 ducats, so I would pay the 80 ducats, and the value of the ducats then go, or I'm sorry, the value, the value of the iron immediately goes up, whether it's bought or sold. There you go. Easy enough. That is the Mercato. Any questions on that? All right, cool. Moving on now to shipping north and shipping south locations. Those 2 locations are functionally identical. The difference between them is shipping north, shipping office north, shipping office south has their own different shares of stock. In addition to that, the north corresponds to the cube that is in this location. The south corresponds to the cube in this location. So it doesn't matter if you go to north or south other than for that and for those. So regardless of which one you go to, you're going to take the resource at the shipping office. So in other words, if I'm there, I then take this resource, put it into my own supply, and then we're going to draw from the bag a total of 5 cubes. We're going to draw 1 to replenish this, and then we're going to replenish dock number 1, or not replenish, but add to any existing dock number 1, dock number 2, dock number 3, and finally dock number 4. And every time we pull a resource out of the bag for this action specifically, we're then going to adjust the price down because we're flooding the market with those resources. So if I were to pull a yellow out here, yellow would drop down. And then if I were to draw another one, yellow would drop down. Then green would drop down, then blue and another blue would drop down. So physically we would be moving the cube or moving the markers down on the boards so that whenever somebody goes and takes a dock action to be able to purchase these resources, well, we're now refilling those resources, as you can see. Make sense? That works for the north and for the south. If multiple players went to the location, yellow would go first, then black would go, and we would do the exact same thing. Except yellow would have chosen whatever cube was here first, which I believe was the green cube, and then whatever I drew, black was going to end up taking for that. Okay? Important to note, this is the only way that the dock will ever regenerate resources. So you need to go to the shipping offices to fill up the dock, or somebody does, to be able to fill up the docks. Okay? Any questions on the shipping offices? All right, moving on to the church. Now, the church is a bit of a peculiar area in that it's not going to be highly traveled. But if it is traveled, it's for an important reason. Now, at the church, there are 2 available favors that you can purchase, which, again, thematically, I don't know where you guys fall along that, but back in the day, thematically, it kind of makes sense. So you're buying favors at the church here. So what this is they range from 20, 30, or there are also in this stack 40 value favors. You're going to adjust the orders of any one of the 5 stores up 1 to 4 spaces, depending on a 20 lets you move it 1 to 2, 30 1 to 3. 40 allows you to adjust the number of orders 1 to 4. So in other words, if you have a whole lot of guild orders for, say, the tailor, maybe you want to boost that up, you're going to want to go to the church. Because remember, don't forget, whoever has taken the rumors here on the gondolieri, they can adjust that one way or the other. So having that in your back pocket is always a nice little thing. So that's what the church allows you to do. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on. All right. So that's the 4 inner areas. Those, remember, only the player that goes to those locations trigger those actions for that player specifically. From this point forward, however, the other 4 that we're going to talk about are shared locations. So the first one we'll talk about is here at the docks. So if I come over here to the docks, first thing is I choose one of the 4 docks and buy resources. So dock number 1, dock number 2, dock number 3, dock number 4, I can buy any and all of the resources available in that location. All right? And that's at current prices. So for instance, if I chose this here, we're looking at the tailor. The tailor currently says blue resources cost 40 ducats a piece, and the iron resources are currently 85. So if I wanted to buy all 3, that would be 40, 40, and 85. That would be 165. I currently have 150. Plan better if that's the case. Or maybe I just buy 2 of them, or however I wish to do. Important thing to note, you can only choose one of the 4 docks to purchase from. So let's say I did just choose those 2. For every resource bought, it's going to adjust the price up on that matching resource. So I bought the 2 blue. That means this peg's going to move over 2. So for any unfortunate soul that chooses to purchase blue goods on subsequent actions, it now costs them 50. So speaking of which, because I took an outer action, it then goes clockwise from me, meaning J-Rex gets to then choose one of the 4 locations. She could choose this one, even though it only has 1 iron, to purchase any goods that she wishes from one location. After she's done adjusting the prices up, then Chris, then Christopher. And that would be the action of the yellow player at the docks. Okay? Now, again, if it were something like this, yellow would go first, then black would go, and then it would be left of black, meaning it would go Christopher and then Jess. Again, the players activate first who are there, and then clockwise from the last player that acts. Okay? Cool?
Cool.
All right. So that is the dock action. And I'm going to completely mess this up. We'll reset the board when we get started. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the guild hall down here. So the guild hall, again, one of the 4 outside locations, this is where you're going to fulfill guild orders. Now you're going to do 2 things, potentially, when you go to the guild hall. You can fulfill as many orders as you wish, and you may draw 1 more. And you could draw first. So if, for instance, I had just a ton of resources over here, I could draw another guild order, and if I was able to fulfill that order, I could choose to fulfill it right away. No harm, no foul. So these are kept secret by the players. The first one that you fulfill, what's going to happen is, in this case, I would have to take these 3, so the Doge's steward, take silk tapestries to the Doge's palace. Per resource delivered, the resource price is going to go up. So in this case, the tailor is going to move up 3 spaces. So the price now has jumped up to 65 bucks a piece. Then the share price is going to go up 1 for every resource. 1, 2, 3. Ah, but hold on. You need to check the number of orders available. There are 3 that need to be filled. There are only 2. Well, unless I have one of these rumors, or maybe I had the foresight to be able to go to the church and buy this, and if I chose to, then on my turn I could go ahead and bump that up, say just 1, let's be selfish. Then by fulfilling this, those orders are then going to drop down to 0. Nobody else can fulfill that anymore blue. And then these 3 would then go back into the bag. And last but not least, the whole purpose of doing that, and this would also go to the bottom of the stack there. There are only 6 available and they rotate. If it's your first guild order that was fulfilled, you get 3 victory points. Cool, you could peg 3 victory points. That's pretty good. Or, if you wish, instead, you could forego some amount of victory points for cold, hard ducats. 50 ducats per point that you choose not to take. Any mix that you want. 3 points and 0 ducats, 0 points and 150 ducats, or any mix of 50 that you wish to do. Your choice, follow your heart. Money's tight early, follow your heart. That's the first one. The second one that you complete, and you're going to keep these so you remember, second one's worth 4, third one's worth 5, and fourth and all subsequent are worth 6 victory points apiece, or 50 ducats per point, however you wish to mix that up. And that is the guild hall. Any questions on that? All right.
No.
Moving on. Let's move on now to the shops. When somebody comes over here to the shops, there are 5 shops in which you can visit. But when you go to the shops, you'll notice that it says shops. You just go to the shop. So, okay, easy enough. So Black's turn, they go over here to the shops. What do you do at the shops? Well, you can sell resources. So, let's say Black didn't go. Apparently, I'm the only one playing this game. Yellow says, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sell at one of the shops. You're only allowed to sell at one of the 5 shops, meaning one color of resources. If I could sell all 3 of my iron if I wish, but maybe I just choose to sell 2 of them. First off, do they have the orders available? I'm checking this time. See, they do. So good. So they have at least 2 so I can sell. What's the current price of the iron?
85.
85 bucks a piece. Well, good news.
170.
You get to pay, or you get paid double for each resource that you sell to the store. So 85 double, that's 170 ducats a piece. That's 340 ducats for that. So for selling, for each resource sold, it works just like the guild hall. Per resource sold, the price is going to go up 1, so it will move up 2 spots. The share price is going to move up 2. And the orders drop 2 because there are 2 resources. And I get 340 ducats. But here's my favorite part. Now, you might have been asking yourself, this is all great and all, but why am I investing in these companies? Well, here you go. So, if I had a couple of shares of the blacksmith here, how much did that pay total? That paid 340. You round to the nearest 100. So in this case, if it were 350, you'd round up to 400. If it's 340 or lower, you round down to 300. Chop a 0 off, so it's 30 bucks a share. Cool. I have 2 shares, I get 60 bucks on top of the 340. Just got paid 400 ducats. That's some lucrative iron. Good deal. All right. Then these would go back into the bag. Everybody that's invested in the blacksmith would get 30 ducats per share. That's why you're going to invest in these companies. Part of the reason, at least. Then, at the end of that, then we're got to talk stock majority holders. So, just like in an 18XX or a lot of other shared incentive games, whoever has the most shares of a company, think of them as the president of the company. So because I'm the only one with shares of the blacksmith, I actually take control of that board. So up to now, it really hasn't mattered. But whenever somebody goes to the stores and sells, well, that's already, share price goes up, the resource price goes up, and the orders go down. But then the player who sold then gets to manipulate their board on every board that they have. So if I was the majority shareholder of the blacksmith, the tailor, and the jeweler, I would be able to manipulate all 3 boards. And when I say manipulate, I can do one of 2 things. I can either lower the resources price by 2, so meaning from 95 here down to 85, which then in turn raises the orders by 1. Or I could go the other way. So if this were at 95, I then could raise the price all the way up. Bad example here, but let's say it were at 80 originally. I could bump that up 2 to raise the price of that, but I lower the orders by 1. And I can do that for every board that I am the majority shareholder in every company. Potentially up to 5 companies. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Right. That's after you go to the shops.
Right. After that, so after I went to the shops and I sold, it didn't have to be iron. It could have been the wheat at the miller or whatever, spices, whatever. Then it goes to Jess's turn. If Jess had the most shares of the tailor, She then controlled the Taylor board. She could sell whatever resource she wanted at one of the 5 shops, get the money, then she would pay dividend, or the bank would pay dividends to that company, whatever resources she sold. Then she could manipulate the Taylor board, which in this case, if she had maybe a guild order that had some blue cubes on it that she needed to be able to deliver, she might drop that price down to, and then to be able to up the orders by 1. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that is the shops. So when I go to the shops, I'm not declaring what shop I'm going to. I'm just saying I'm going to the shops, and then we all can go to different shops, all right, in clockwise order, all right? All right, so there's only one location left to talk about, and that is the stock market. What can you do at the stock market? Buy and sell stock, obviously, right? You can buy up to 3 shares, and you can sell up to 3 shares. No arbitrage. They cannot be the same shares. So if you sell yellow, you can't buy yellow. If you buy yellow, you can't sell yellow in the same action. No matter the amount of shares of a color that you buy, the share price is going to go up 1 step. So if I choose to buy 3 shares of the blacksmith, or I buy 1 share of the blacksmith, the share price is going to go up 1 no matter what. And I would add it to my portfolio, and obviously I would have paid 65 ducats a piece because that's where it was, the share value was. And I could mix and match however I wish between the companies, up to 3 shares, same with selling. Again, abiding by you can't sell what you buy, can't buy what you sell in the same action. Now, you might be asking yourself, what happens if the share price goes above 100? Well, congratulations. First off, well done. Then what happens at that point is the stock splits. So everybody that is an investor in that company will then get 1 victory point for every share that they have. In addition to that, well, if it splits, that means the value drops down. Depending on what that value is, it's going to drop in half. So from 100, it would go to 50. Okay? If it goes to 105, it rounds up, it would go to 55. Easy enough. However, if the resource value ever eclipses 100 ducats, the Doge says, slow down your roll, you must slow. And in that case, he implements pricing controls. Or as we like to think it, he just thinks the value of whatever it is. It can get to $100 per resource. But once it eclipses that 100, oh no, so sorry. It resets to 40, and that's it. Which is great if you're trying to buy it. Boy, does it suck if you're trying to sell it. There you go. So those are all the available actions that are available to you in the game. So turn order, we do all the actions, then we advance this, then we choose our actions again, then we do this, do that for 12 rounds. Whoever has the most points wins. Well, we go into final scoring. Final scoring is fairly simple. It is, oh, I didn't talk about that part. We should probably do that. Any resources you have left over, in a lot of games, they're wasted. Good news, they're not wasted in this game.
Are they worth points?
Negative. For every resource that you have left over, they are marked, they cost you 50% of their value. So let's take a look. If I had this left over at the end of the game, what's the value of the green resources?
40.
40. What's the value of the gray? 40. Value of the yellow?
They're all 40.
So that would be 120. What's half of 120? 60 ducats. I have to pay 60 ducats out of my pocket. Why does that matter? Ducats are points. So sort of you're paying. For every amount that you cannot pay, for every 100 ducats you still owe, you lose a victory point. So if I had the 60 ducats, okay, I would pay 60 ducats. If I didn't, I would lose 1 point. Then, any unfulfilled guild orders, you lose 2 points for. Womp womp. So make sure you don't bite off more than you can chew. Then we're going to sum the total value of all of our portfolios. Let's say it were 1,065 ducats. Round to the nearest 100, in that case it would round up to 1,100, and you get 1 point per 100. So in that case, yellow would get 11 points. Then, whatever cash on hand, round to the nearest 100, 100 ducats equals 1 point. At that point, whoever has the most points wins. Ties are broken in order of most cash, then stock value. If there's still a tie, don't worry about it because that's not going to happen, I hope. The only thing left to talk about now are the special actions that we're going to choose at the beginning of each of the bidding rounds. So we're going to go through these very quickly, but they should make a whole lot of sense now that you have the context of what the 8 available actions are on the board. So we covered the gondolieri, which, sort of. We covered that they get the rumors. So, you know, they're the taxis back in the old days, right? So they get to hear the gossip. So they have the inside scoop on these various companies. So that's what those are. However, you'll notice that it also has this handy dandy little gondolieri marker. At one point on any of the 3 rounds, they can jump in. And in this case, if Christopher is the one, since he's last in turn order here, and he wants to trigger his action, he can jump in front of somebody and be like, oh, not so fast. I'm going to take my action. So let me give a good example of why he may want to do this. So let's say blue went there. There. It was something like this. Yellow would take their action. Everybody would take their actions at the shop. Then blue would go to fulfill a guild order. But maybe Christopher was like, well, I really need some of these resources to be able to fill the guild order that I have. So he says, oh, not so fast, my friend. Stop. I'm going to trigger my action first. So what happens is he jumps in the middle of wherever he said. So in other words, temporarily, black will actually activate before blue. We'll all take a dock action, starting with Christopher, and then we will go back to turn order. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's the gondolieri, or gondolari, if you prefer. The next one is the Guildmaster. So whenever you draw a guild order here, the Guildmaster can draw 2, choose 1 to keep, return the other to the bottom of the deck. In addition to that, remember, any unfulfilled guild orders at the end of the game cost you 2 points. If you're the Guildmaster and you go to the guild hall, you then can discard any one that you already had. Oh, you don't like something? You don't think you're going to be able to get it? Just go ahead and slide that in underneath. No harm, no foul. Moving on to the Harbormaster. The Harbormaster, you take a free resource from the supply bag whenever you visit the shipping offices. So you not only get these, but you then get mystery meat. Reach into the bag, draw 1, and you get whatever it is. That one does not, I'm sorry, flip that over. It does adjust the resource price down on it, okay? So normally you would only get 1, here, there, you get 2. Next, and I should point out that all of these have the text on what they do on the other side. Next up, the tax collector. This collects an extra dividend every time anyone, including yourself, receives a dividend, just as if you had a share of that stock. That's regardless of whether you own the stock or not. So if you're planning on going to the shops, oh, Nelly, you can cash in using that tax collector. Okay? The thief, dirty rascal, can steal any 1 cube of a resource when you visit the dock. Okay? So now, in this case, let's say I was the thief. Not that I am, but let's say I were. Christopher would take his action here at the dock. Then I get to take an action. I do not get to steal before Christopher's action because I can only be the thief on my action. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if Christopher, say, bought all 3 of these resources on my turn, I could choose to steal 1 from any dock. And let me make a better example of this. There we go. Whatever dock you choose, you're both buying from and stealing from. You cannot steal this blue cube here and then go shopping here. No, you choose one of the 4 docks in which to purchase from, and you get to steal 1 of those. So looking at this, if I choose this dock here, looking at this, it really didn't matter because they're all 40 ducats apiece. So maybe I choose to steal this one and I only purchase the other 2 for 40 ducats apiece. Okay, that's what the thief does.
The thief doesn't affect the price, right?
And it does not affect the price. Good call. The last one is the trader, as in trading, not being a trader. At the Mercato, can be really, really useful. The trader can buy any 2 resources and sell any 2 resources, and you're going to adjust the price based on that. So this is really, really a nice way to dictate what resources you're going to get. Works a lot like the dock, except you're guaranteed 2 resources if you're the trader as opposed to just 1. And there you go. That, folks, is how you play Masters of Venice. I think that covered it for the most part. Any questions locally?
Yeah, shipping office, north and south
Yes.
stocks.
How do we do
Oh,
those?
good call.
Yes.
Whenever somebody goes to the shipping offices, so when you go to the stock market, you can purchase shipping office stocks for 20 ducats apiece. They're worth 20 ducats apiece at the end of the game, so they don't adjust. However, whenever somebody goes to the north or south, respectively, so the north pays the north, the south pays the south, you get 10 ducats per share. Okay?
Makes sense.
Any other questions?
I don't know if we brought up that when you sell, it's not like when you buy, so it will go down per.
Oh, good call. I mentioned when you purchase stocks. When you go to the stock market, regardless of how many shares you purchase of a color, it goes up one step. However, if you choose to sell, it goes down 2 steps on the share price for every share that you sell. That's a considerable difference between buying and selling.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good catch. All right, that's it. That's all I got.